Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't believe that there is a citizen in this room who doesn't believe that the city council and city manager run this city. They may worry that they run it roughshod, but there is not one citizen in here. To my colleague from the first ward is, he seems to be the one who is making this a union issue, and no one else. The public who spoke tonight didn't talk about unions. They talked about kids. They talked about parents. They talked about care. They talked about 48-hour shifts. They talked about no experience. The only person who's talked about unions tonight, pretty much, is my colleague. So that hearing has now been thrown out. Now, let's come back to a couple of things. In the packet of information we have, all of my colleagues have, now they must have more information than me, there is no detailed information on cost savings. Not in this packet. Not a page. There are, the way you heard it tonight, no references, and we don't even know who's used Gateway and doesn't use it. But we do know one thing. Currently, Gateway provides no emergency medical transport in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and this council is telling you, no matter what you said tonight, that you're a guinea pig to be the #1 test case in St. Louis for emergency medical transport. We found out for the first time tonight from our friends at Gateway that maybe this contract starts September the 1st. I would have thought that would have been something that could have been in the packet, but it wasn't. The other thing, have any of my colleagues Googled Jane Cunningham? This isn't a union thing, but this is University City. This is University City. We are known for being a leader in the progressive community and caring about people. And when someone brought up all the names, whether it be Harriet Woods, Joe Adams, Marvin Levy, you name it, for us to have in support of this action, Jane Cunningham has to sort of cause everybody a little bit of pause. Because even the Republican Party has moved away from her. I mean, this is sort of anathema to what we stand for in this community that I moved to in 1994. Now, my friend David Stokes spoke from the Showing Institute, not necessarily a group that I'm most biggest fan of, but I'm okay with some outsourcing. I'm okay with ancillary outsourcing. It's worked in limited situations, but this isn't ancillary. This is one of the pillars of our community, and we are being asked to outsource this to a company with no experience in first responder in St. Louis at this time. My colleague, the doctor, also talked about a 48-hour shift. If a 48-hour shift was the issue, then why in God's name didn't he say something when we just approved contracts that had 48-hour shifts? Then speak up. It makes one wonder that you didn't want to worry too much about the contract, because it was just time to go ahead and put this train on down the road. At the end of the day, we had the opportunity, and so did the city manager. If we were concerned about 48-hour shifts, we had every opportunity during negotiations and before we signed that contract to make that an issue, and to the best of my knowledge, it wasn't. And now we're using it as a reason not to do this. To me, this simply does not make sense. Now, every member of council today got a 3-page letter from Jerry Griman. Jerry Griman is one of the most respected attorneys in St. Louis, been to the U.S. Supreme Court several times, and was the head of our Civil Service Commission. I'll only read a brief part of the 3-page letter. And I wasn't even going to read it until Dr. Kraft went off on his tangent. And let me make sure. On such a serious matter bearing on public safety as the EMS, one would expect responsible city officials to make maximum efforts to fully study all issues, to do so in a manner that is fully transparent to the citizenry, obtain public input, and provide ample public notice of meetings to consider and decide on the issue. However, none of that seems to have been done here. A similar process of a small cabal of city officials operating largely in secret was employed in connection with the recent proposed bond issues. The public vote rejecting those bond issues should be regarded as a message to university citizens that they expect something different and better from their city officials. I note that I am also aware of the long-running battles between the city manager and university city firefighters. In my view, neither side is free of blame for the friction that exists. However, I have had the unique opportunity to view those battles from the perspective of the position I held for several years as chair of the University City Civil Service Commission, and must say that in my opinion, the city manager seems to have an agenda of sticking it to the firefighters. The current plan to remove the investment in firefighters and outsourcing the gateway. If so, it is disgraceful that the city manager would allow considerations of personal pique and power to drive the decision-making process on a matter involving public safety, and shameful that members of the city council would allow him to do so. If the merits of the outsourcing proposal are as favorable as some city officials have suggested, I expect that open discussion and consideration of them would persuade the public. Accordingly, I urge the council to refrain from taking action on the proposal this evening and instead publish the details of the proposal and set in motion a process for public input and discussion of the proposal before any decision is made. Now, one thing everybody's got to understand here. The reason you're here tonight is not because of any notice from the city, because you didn't get one. You got this little notice on Thursday at 9, part of the Post-Dispatch. So for anyone to say that this is a good public forum, it's still a farce. Because you came because 2 council members sent emails out. That shouldn't have to be our job when we're talking about outsourcing public safety. Public engagement is a process. At least one citizen's opinion was asked all the way through. But for public engagement, none of you were asked about any aspect of this. Not about Gateway's experience, not about Gateway's credentials, not about what they're going to do on billing, not about whether or not you're going to have 2 paramedics or 1. At the end of the day, this council and this city government never asked. As a matter of fact, if you want to look back to confirm this, our draft agenda that came out a week previous did not have this on it. But the agenda that came out Thursday night at 9 p.m. did. So at the end of the day, when you're asking for public engagement, you got 7 people up here. Ask all 7 of us about it. Were you really even going to be asked? And I think you know the answer. So to my colleagues, before we take this vote, unless Ms. Carr is going to, I make a motion that we table this for at least 2 months.